April and May of every year seems to be a very busy time period for my channel because it just seems like we have a lot of distributions that are coming out at the same time. I've already reviewed Ubuntu 20.04, which I found to be an outstanding GNOME desktop. Manjaro released version 20, and I checked out the GNOME edition there and also the XFCE edition as well. We've had a new version of Pop! OS, and even RetroPie has put out a new version. And in all this craziness, I definitely wanted to make sure that I checked out Ubuntu MATE 20.04 because it is one of my favorite distributions, and I definitely want to keep checking it out to see what the developers are up to. Now, it's not my daily driver because generally I find that Ubuntu MATE has some rough edges that just frustrate me and just sours the experience. So every time they put out a new release, I always make it a point to check it out because I'm basically asking myself, is this the release that I'll be able to use as my daily driver? Now with Ubuntu MATE 20.04, the focus is again on bug fixing, so I was especially interested to check out this release, and let's go ahead and do that right now. So here we are with a fresh installation of Ubuntu MATE that's fully up to date. How did I arrive at this point? Well, let's go ahead and get in our time machine. I'll reverse time and show you the installation process. Now, I've already gone ahead and booted into the live media here. I just went ahead and flashed a flash drive with the Ubuntu MATE ISO image, and then I proceeded to boot into it, which is what you see here. And then when it boots up, you get this nifty little hello screen right here. We'll talk about that more later. But I want to go ahead and get this installed. Now, I have been playing around with Ubuntu MATE 20.04 before today. Actually, that's what's installed on my recording PC, my studio PC. Basically, almost every video in the past year that I've recorded has been recorded on the same PC running Ubuntu MATE. And I've actually upgraded that to Ubuntu MATE 20.04 some weeks ago before final release. So I've been running this a while, but this is the first time that I'm actually installing it on this particular laptop. Let's go ahead and get that done. So I'll open up the installer here, and we'll go ahead and get right to it. Now, one thing you're going to notice if you've installed Ubuntu MATE in the past is that the installer, well, it's not really all that different in this release. So I'm just going to leave the defaults for the language and the keyboard. And here we have a normal installation or minimal. Now for my installs, I like to go with the minimal installation, but for the review, I'll leave it on normal. What this means is that with the minimal installation, you will have fewer default applications. This isn't new. This was introduced actually quite some time ago. So I'm actually happy to see that this is also included in 20.04 because, well, I really like a minimal installation. What can I say? So checked by default is the option here to download updates while installing Ubuntu MATE. I'm going to leave that checked. Then there's also an option to install third-party software. I'm going to go ahead and choose that as well. I recommend that most of you do as well because you might have some hardware that might not be completely open source or not open source at all, and you'll have a greater likelihood of having that hardware work out of the box with this option checked. And now when it comes to this installation type screen, what I'm going to do is erase the disk and install Ubuntu MATE. If you're following along with me, I hope that you've already backed up all of your files. For advanced features here, we do have an LVM option that we can use, and that's going to give us the possibility of encrypting our disk, which I'll go ahead and choose that option. We also have an experimental ZFS option. I'm not going to choose that one. Use at your own risk. I have tested this on Ubuntu 20.04. It seems to work just fine. But that's not me giving you the go-ahead to go ahead and use this on your production systems. I think that there's still possibly some bugs to work out here. But ZFS is a great file system. I think it's awesome. I'm glad to see that it's actually coming to fruition in Linux. And another thing to mention here too is if you use ZFS, your RAM usage at idle will be higher. So if you have a memory-starved computer, you probably don't want to use this option. Now I will choose my security key. And confirm the changes. And then I'll choose my location, get it as close to Detroit as I can. And I'll type the name of my computer, which I name after Final Fantasy VI Espers, if you didn't already hear me mention that in countless other videos. Continue, and it's installing. So I'll go ahead and let this finish. I'll be right back. And here we go. We have a successful installation. At least I think it is. Let's go ahead and restart and find out. This video is sponsored by Linode, my cloud infrastructure provider for over 2 years. Linode provides Linux servers that make it easy and affordable to host your own app, site, or service live in the cloud. Whether you're a Linux power user or just starting out, you can use Linode. You can start from scratch and fully customize your server for any application, or use Linode's one-click apps to deploy game servers, WordPress sites, personal VPNs, and much more. You can even upload and run your own image. Servers can be easily scaled up or down, so you only pay for what you need, and regular backups are also available so you'll never lose your work. Best of all, Linode comes with 24/7 support that is 100% managed by humans by phone support or support ticket. To get $20 in free credit when you create your new Linode account, sign up at linode.com/learnlinuxtv. The link is in the description. I'd like to thank Linode for not only being awesome, but also for their continued support of my channel. I really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the video. And here we are at the login screen. So if you are curious what the login screen looks like on this new version, well, here you go. Go ahead and log in. And here we are with the default desktop. It looks like everything was a success. And even though it just came out, we already have updates, so I may as well go ahead and take care of those as well. And now everything is up to date. We have a fresh Ubuntu MATE installation. Let's go ahead and check it out. So at first glance, it might appear as though not much has actually changed here. If I open up the file manager, for example, even the theme looks pretty much the same as it always has, which to me is not really a bad thing. Green is my favorite color, so I'm a little biased towards this. I actually like it quite a bit. Ubuntu MATE is one of the few distributions where I'm actually pretty much comfortable with the theme out of the box. I don't need to change anything. What I do often change is I change the wallpaper. As much as I love green, I like space, astronomy, stuff like this. I love this wallpaper here. It's actually a slideshow, so you're going to get a different image every few minutes or so. I think it's just geeky and fun. I love it. But other than that, I generally leave the theme alone and just use the default. Now, speaking of themes, there actually is a very important change here. Now, you might not notice it right away because, if you look through the themes list here, you get the same themes that we've always had here. There really isn't anything new. Well, actually there is. I'm going to bring up Welcome. And for some reason, this did not appear when I first logged in, which is kind of weird. In live mode, it did. I don't know if it's a bug. It's a very minor one. I don't really care. But generally speaking, this is what you see when you first log into a fresh Ubuntu MATE installation. Now, I'll get back to the themes in just a minute. I'm going to not send the telemetry right now because, I've already done that on this machine. But we actually get some new options for themes right here. We have color selection. This is a new feature in Ubuntu MATE 2004. So I'll go ahead and move this over here, bring up the file manager, and let's check this out. So if I go to color selection, we have the default, which is the one that it came with, basically, the one we all know and love, the green theme. At least I love it. But if I want something that's a different color, let's say blue, I'll click Install here. It looks like it's installing a PPA in the background. So I'll put in my password here. Let's see what happens. So that's installed, and I can also install, let's say, purple, for example. And now everything is changed to purple. And if I scroll through the list, we get some more options here. We also get light or dark. So if I wanted to go ahead and apply the blue theme, now that I have it installed, I can go back to that. And then I can go ahead and apply something, let's just say ambient dark. There we go. So not only do I have a blue theme with the blue coloration of the icons, you can see the close button is now blue. We actually have the ability to do the same thing, but also with a dark theme. That is awesome. And if I click on Appearance, you can see that the options that I have downloaded now appear in the Appearance Preferences. For example, this one wasn't here before, so I can still change the theme through the normal interface. But on the Welcome app, I have quick access to these settings, which is awesome. And you know, I have to say, I love GNOME. It's my favorite desktop environment. But I really wish GNOME had a feature like this. How awesome would it be to be able to change the coloration of your GNOME theme right in the GNOME settings and change the colors of your icons, your window borders, and everything? I mean, we've always been able to do that in the past, and there's tweak tools that allow us to do that, but it's easily accessible here. I wish we had that feature in GNOME, so I guess I'm a little envious. This is actually pretty cool. Now let's look at some other features here. Another new feature is the Firmware Updater. Go ahead and open that up. It's not going to find any new firmware actually. What's cool here is that it's going to show me the current firmware versions that I have installed. And hypothetically, it's supposed to give me the option to update if I have an update available. It even goes as far as to show you like what's required, which is pretty cool. It requires AC adapter, things like that. Now, I've already gone ahead and updated the firmware on everything during my Fedora 32 review, so there's nothing to actually update right now. So unfortunately, I won't be able to show you this in action. But I really feel like this is a nice touch to be able to install firmware updates through Ubuntu MATE without having to have like a Windows partition or some kind of DOS boot CD or something like we used to have to deal with. This is actually pretty cool. So if we go into MATE Tweak, which is actually another tool I love, something that I think sets Ubuntu MATE apart, we may as well check out some of the other layouts. I think this is really cool because if you don't like the default 2-panel layout, we could choose something else. So for example, traditional, which isn't really much different, but this is the traditional GNOME 2 interface that we've had for quite some time. Our applications menu up here is different. It's the classic menu. If you've used GNOME 2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you want something more different, we could actually use Cupertino. And as you can see here, we get a Mac-like bar on the bottom. Instead of the normal GNOME-styled panel on the bottom, we have this, which is pretty cool. And what that also gives you is a file menu up here at the top. So if you're coming from a Mac, for example, it might be muscle memory for you to reach for the file menu up here at the top of the screen. So if that's you, maybe that's something you'll find helpful. I think it's really cool to go ahead and just check out all of these different layouts here. Like this is more like the Unity interface from Ubuntu. That's pretty cool. And some of these, when you change, they automatically minimize all of your applications for some reason, but that's no big deal. I'll go back to familiar, and we're back to the default. So right away, I can see that this is a little bit more stable. In the past, I've had panel applets crash a lot when changing the style of your panels. As you can see here, I did not run into that problem. I did run into it once when I changed the display resolution, but that's the only time that I actually had a crash. It's actually been, well, pretty solid. I think that it's been great so far. And again, I've been using Ubuntu MATE 2004 on my studio PC for a longer amount of time. And I know that the focus this time around is on fixing bugs. And I think that they've definitely done a good job because it does seem more stable. And there's always been this problem that has stopped me from using Ubuntu MATE as my daily driver, because there's almost always a lot of really small bugs that just get under my skin. But I could definitely see that the focus that the developers have paid on stabilizing this desktop have definitely paid off. Also in this release, we have some new keyboard shortcuts, so I can hold the super key and then press up to maximize, then the down arrow to go back to the window size it was before. And then we could do super left to tile to the left side. I could do super left again to make it smaller, larger. I could just keep pressing the left arrow while holding super to change the tiling size, which is pretty cool. I could do the same thing for the right side. So we have more tiling options here, which is actually really awesome. And then right now I don't have this centered, but I could do Alt Super C for center, which will center the window right on the screen here, which is great. And we can also snap to corners as well by holding Alt and Super at the same time. We can do left, so that's the upper left. Get pretty much the same thing going here where we can choose the size if I keep pressing it. And then right, same thing. And then if I also hold Shift while holding Alt and Super, that will give me the bottom corners. And again, left and right arrows will give me varying sizes, which is really cool. I like that quite a bit. It gives me full control over basically where everything is tiled, and I think that's awesome. And I think it's really awesome to get full control over the tiling here. It's not going to be as good as a tiling window manager or anything like that, but it's definitely pretty cool, and once you get the hang of these new keyboard shortcuts, I think you'll like them. It makes a lot of sense, and I think they did a really good job implementing these. That basically allows you to be productive without always reaching for the mouse. You can do everything with the keyboard because, let's face it, that's where your fingers are naturally anyway. So we may as well put those fingers to use and give you more shortcuts and key bindings that you can use to customize your window tiling. So there's a couple other features I want to talk about. I can't really show you because I have an Intel card and these features are mainly for gaming. But if you had an NVIDIA card, dual graphics with also an Intel card, for example, you should see an NVIDIA icon up here that will allow you to change graphics modes. So you can activate and deactivate your NVIDIA card as necessary, which gives you the most control over battery life. Again, I only have an Intel card on this laptop, so that's not something I can show you, but if you do have hardware like that, you should see an icon up here at the top. And also included by default is game mode, which is supposed to give you some extra performance and basically switch some things on your computer to try to make games run better. Again, this isn't a gaming laptop, but I want to point that out, that the developers of Ubuntu MATE have gone through some effort here to make the gaming experience better for us. And you're also supposed to be able to get NVIDIA updates from the official repositories, which means you shouldn't need to rely on third-party PPAs anymore. So basically, your gaming experience should be better with this new release, and I think that's actually pretty cool. So overall, I really like Ubuntu MATE 2004. There's some small improvements all over the place, too many to possibly go over in one video, so I just thought I would mention the major highlights. And it's a much more stable experience because, that's what keeps me from using Ubuntu MATE as my daily driver. There's just too many of these small bugs that just nag me, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Again, I've been using this on my studio PC for a while. It's been totally fine. And the only crash that I've been able to make happen is this one right here. And this crash right here happened when I was just experimenting with changing the screen resolution. So this has been a recurring problem. Basically what it is this brisk menu right here just really likes to crash. Now, thankfully it's much more stable now because the only time I've ever been able to crash that applet is when I'm changing screen resolutions. And that's not something I'm going to be doing very often. And I can also just use a different application launcher, so it's not really a deal killer for me. And if this is the only bug that I run into, then I really have nothing to complain about. But I do think it's a little interesting that in every release, the brisk menu crashes for some reason or another. So I don't understand why it's the default if it's unstable. but maybe the developers feel like they can definitely fix the bugs and work these problems out. And if this is the only bug in the brisk menu that I ever experience, then that just means they only have that one thing to fix and it's completely solid. I think they've put out a really good release with Ubuntu MATE 2004. The team behind the Ubuntu MATE project have outdone themselves because we have an outstanding release in Ubuntu MATE 2004. I was only able to reproduce one bug, and it's not even a bug I care about, so I think they've done an outstanding job making this a stable and solid release, and in fact, I think it's definitely the case that Ubuntu MATE 2004 is worthy of being a daily driver because all of the bugs that I've run into, except the one, have been fixed, and the experience has been solid, it's fast, it's a great distribution. And just like before, we have the same attention to detail. Everything from the boot splash all the way up to the desktop has a lot of polish. It's just great. It just looks awesome. It's like every single corner of the distribution has been touched in some way. And we even get an option to change the coloration of the theme to match our preferences. And there's so many things to be excited about here. And there's a lot of smaller improvements like high DPI support being better. There's all kinds of improvements here that it's impossible for me to cover all of them in one video. But I definitely recommend that you give Ubuntu MATE 2004 a try. Even if you have an older computer and want to breathe new life into it, I think it'll run great on old hardware. Or you want to squeeze the most you can out of your new hardware, I think Ubuntu MATE 2004 is a great fit. So there you go. Let me know what you think of Ubuntu MATE 2004 in the comments down below, and I'll see you again real soon.